Kia ora, good evening. The search for the vehicle that missing 11-year-old Mike Zhao Beckenridge and John Beckenridge were last seen in will continue at Curio Bay tomorrow. Members of the Police National Dive Team will attempt to deploy an underwater camera tomorrow after parts of the missing vehicle were found in the area. The camera will be attached to a helicopter, and police hope this will give visual confirmation of what may be in the water. The camera is being used because conditions are preventing police divers from entering the water. Hundreds of false credit cards, loyalty and identity cards were found as a result of a search warrant executed by police in Queenstown yesterday. Along with the false cards, police also confiscated equipment used in the manufacture of counterfeit and skimmed cards. Police are unsure how long the activity has occurred in Queenstown or other areas, but believe a number of items have been obtained using the cards. A 26-year-old male has been arrested and charged with forgery and will appear in the Queenstown District Court tomorrow. Police are asking anyone who may have been scammed by a false credit card to make contact. The clean-up of Southland's Waituna Lagoon could hold the key to improving water quality nationwide. Sharon Rees has more.
This week saw community groups from across Southland working together to stop deteriorating water quality in its tracks. The Waituna Lagoon has been a major project for local organisations since the beginning of 2013, after it became apparent that years of intensive farming was threatening the health and sustainability of the lagoon. The Department of Conservation and Fonterra have joined to make Living Water Partnership, which hopes to use catchments like the Waituna Lagoon to model future water quality improvement plans.
The Living Water Partnership is a really ambitious and exciting partnership between Fonterra and the Department of Conservation. The idea is that we'll spend $20 million in 5 catchments throughout New Zealand over the next 10 years, finding ways to improve water quality and biodiversity and allow for sustainable farming.
But it wasn't just DOC and Fonterra getting stuck into the lagoon, with local community groups also having their say.
One of the big drivers of the partnership is to work with our local communities in each catchment. So here in Waituna, we're working really closely, especially with farmers, regional council, district council, local iwi, DOC, community groups and anybody else who has a stake in Waituna.
Dairy NZ and NIWA are carrying out scientific experiments on site that will hopefully continue to improve the nature and health of the lagoon.
Since the program started, we've invested a lot of time and energy into getting to know our community and finding out who the key people are. And we're also investing heavily in science. So we're trying to understand a kind of baseline current state of where things are at in terms of water quality, hydrology and ecology in the catchment and down to the lagoon. And from there we'll be able to measure our progress over time.
Farmers' extensive work in fencing and planting is also assisting with the betterment of the catchment.
Very nearly all of the major water channels in the Waituna catchment are now fenced, effluent. There has been massive dollars spent by individual farmers in upgrading effluent systems, many of which have done that prior to needing to go for a new consent, have voluntarily done it. There's riparian plantings. All of those things are contributing to the better water quality of the Waituna catchment.
Systems being trialled to improve the water quality include filtration beds of oyster shells and limestone, planting in and around wetland and testing a wood chip filter.
One of the most important things here is really around the doing bit. So really taking some of the ideas that we've developed as part of our science programs and actually applying them to see if they're actually going to work, to demonstrate to farmers the effectiveness of some of these tools and to improve the scientific understanding of how they function. We saw the partnership with Living Water being very, very important for us, because the Living Water program is all about sustainable dairying alongside healthy ecosystems, which is also our vision. And the Living Water program is also very much focused on the doing part, really making things happen and trialling things out.
What we've got here is a tile drain that we've brought to the surface. It comes into this pit that's lined and full of wood chips. And what we're aiming to do is provide the perfect conditions for denitrifying bacteria, which naturally occur, to convert the nitrate that's coming in the tile water into nitrogen gases.
12 kilometres of the lagoon is going to be completely reconstructed across 9 properties, with just over 1 kilometre of work remaining. The remaining work is due to be completed by June this year. Sharon Rees, South Today News.
ACC has welcomed an investment in motorcycle safety initiatives over 2015 and 16. A $4 million investment was advised by the Motorcycle Safety Advisory Council, who present ACC with initiatives to make motorcycling safer on New Zealand roads. The investment will go towards re-engineering high-risk routes and help to reduce the number and severity of motorcycling injuries resulting from poor road design and maintenance. Educational campaigns to increase driver awareness of motorcyclists will also come from the investment. The MSAC oversees the investment of the Motorcycle Safety Levy, which is collected when bikes are registered. TripAdvisor's 2015 Travellers' Choice Awards have been announced and Queenstown has taken out the top spot.
Queenstown has been named the #1 destination in both New Zealand and the South Pacific in the 2015 Travellers' Choice Awards, as well as being rated one of the top 25 destinations in the world. This is the third consecutive year the town has won the country's top destination, but the first time it's taken the title of Best South Pacific Region. Queenstown beat Sydney to #1 after its 4-year reign of being the top South Pacific destination. The town sits at number 22 of the top 25 destinations in the world, behind Budapest at number 21.
Stay with us after the break. What effect is loud music having on your ears? And the CBD prepares to take a step back in time. Welcome back. The full extent of the effects of personal digital music players on hearing is yet to be seen in New Zealand, but one local audiologist is urging listeners to turn down the volume or at least reduce the amount of time ears are exposed to excess noise. This week is Hearing Week, and audiologist Simon Melville says the silent epidemic of hearing loss affects all ages.
We've got X Factor on TV, we've got all this hype and excitement around music, around sound, which is fantastic, we love it. But I think conversely, there's the side of respect for those sounds that perhaps the younger generation doesn't yet have or doesn't yet understand. So certainly they're listening to music at louder levels than ever we were as children, and hence they're at higher risk of losing their hearing. Part of it is, I guess, just no rules or no sort of fixed or firm ideas about how loud is loud, and also how long is long. So in audiology and the sort of sphere that I work in, there's a kind of a golden rule of duration and intensity. So if somebody wants it louder, that's to some extent okay, but they've got to do it in very short, sharp bursts so they're not damaging their hearing. Equally, they could listen to their devices or their music for longer, but they'll have to have it at a softer level. At the moment, I guess for them, the louder, the cooler the device, the better. So that's to some extent a little bit of a concern that there is no industry regulator out there taking control of it.
How long potentially could they continue on at the levels they have been listening before they might see some serious effects?
Yeah, probably too early to tell. We're still sort of always the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, so we'll probably see those problems, but it might not be emerging until 5, 10 or 15 years down the track. I guess the telltale signs in kids now is, hey, if I myself are turning the TV up or having to get up close in the class or sitting back but missing out a lot, hey, I might already be at risk or have a hearing loss. So again, recommendation, come and get your hearing checked.
Also new evidence coming through with the elderly as well, perhaps a link between hearing loss and dementia.
Yeah, absolutely. So this research has sort of been percolating for a long time. The theory goes is that if people are to some extent restrained from hearing clearly, so they've got a hearing loss and their ears are acting as the filter, the auditory pathways start to decline. They're not stimulated correctly or in the appropriate ways, and as a result, you can imagine what happens up the top here. It starts to get a very filtered effect. So these people aren't the sound is held back, they're not hearing as well or as clearly, and those parts of the auditory cortex start to decline, they start to die off because they're not getting the stimulation they require. That makes it really hard, really tiring. So that's happening all subconsciously, so the person isn't even aware of how hard their brain is actually trying to hear to fill in those gaps. put hearing aids or some assistive listening device onto them, and all of a sudden that sound is there, it's stimulated again, those auditory parts of the brain start to wake up if they haven't declined too much, and that is arrested. So we slow that ageing process and the decline. The research suggests that people with hearing loss generally take 7 years to admit they have a problem. So they're sitting there, what I call in the incubator phase. They're aware that they've got a hearing problem, but they're just not choosing to act on it. And it's sort of trying to bring that hearing awareness to their forefront. So what they start to do is avoid social situations. They start to not go out as much anymore. So I guess people have to take a bit of a look at themselves as well and say, look, how is my auditory and my hearing behaviour? Am I avoiding things or just filling in the gaps myself or pretending I've heard it when in fact I haven't? Stop faking it, in other words, and sort of own up. Do you have a hearing problem? In which case, we're only a step away. Get your hearing checked. It's Hearing Awareness Week, so they should be doing that.
Stewart Island students will be exchanging the natural beauty of the island to experience the bright city lights of our capital city this year.
Half Moon Bay school students have been told they'll be travelling to Wellington in November after $5,000 was granted to the school by the Ministry of Youth Development. The Small Community Youth Grant Fund supports one-off youth initiatives in remote areas. Years 7 and 8 students from the school have had ongoing contact with other students who are also in isolated situations, and the trip to Wellington will give them the opportunity for these students to meet each other. Half Moon Bay School said for some students the November trip will be their first visit to a major centre and comes just as they prepare to enrol for boarding school on the mainland.
Heritage Month is only 5 days from wrapping up, but the biggest events are yet to come. Tomorrow's CBD extravaganza event will see the Invercargill CBD transform itself and turn back the clock to celebrate the city's history. Local businesses, organisations and residents are all coming together to put on the biggest heritage event to date, turning a walk down Esk Street into a trip down memory lane.
We've had quite a range of businesses getting involved. So for the window display, we've got between 16 and 20 businesses with window displays in the CBD. Other businesses are just participating in the corporate dress-up competition, and others are just staying open late tomorrow night, which is great. Some shops are using sort of items from the 1800s, and that kind of pioneering history, but others are focusing on the 1920s or whatever's relevant to their business. On John Street, we've got free horse and cart rides. We've got music in the SIT arcade. We've got a choir singing there. We've got piano accordions. We've got bagpipers. We've got rock and roll dancers. We've got a taxidermy display and also a demonstration on how you actually do things like taxidermy. The library's got a treasure hunt of its own there, and lots of people are dressing up, which is really exciting. The main aim of Heritage Month is to raise the profile of heritage in Southland, and I think it just reminds people of how important our heritage is, and that it's that it is something that we can all enjoy. There's been lots of families participating in these events with kids, and lots of older people reminiscing about the old days and that sort of thing. So heritage really is for everyone.
Sounds like a lot of fun. And now let's take a look at today's weather.
Nominations are open for the 2015 Southland Environment Awards. This year marks the 20th year of the awards, and Environment Southland wants to hear about anyone who's making a difference in our region. Individuals, schools, farmers, community groups and businesses. If that's you or someone you know, get an entry form and let's recognise and celebrate these environmental achievers. Entries close May 1st. Contact Environment Southland for details today.
And taking a look at the weather for today, Thursday the 26th of March. Quite a few 20s around the region. Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, Dunedin, Queenstown, all on 20. Christchurch on 19 today, 17 for Gore and 14 the high for Invercargill and Stewart Island at 3 o'clock today. Tomorrow, cloudy periods, winds mainly light with southeasterlies developing about the coast in the afternoon. 19 for Winton and Wyndham tomorrow, 13 for Stewart Island. Invercargill looking for 18 tomorrow, and Tuatapere the same, overnight lows of 10 for both towns. And for Te Anau, 21 degrees, while Queenstown's chasing 22. To the marine forecast for FOVO, variable 10 knots to southeast 15 knots, sea slight with a southwest swell of 2 metres. For Pusiga, variable 10 knots to southeasterly 15 knots, southwest swell of 3 metres and sea slight. And in the long range forecast for Saturday, cloudy with rain developing in the morning and a southeast change. Sunday, rain easing to showers with southerlies and showers continue with southwesterlies on Monday. And that's it from us this Thursday. Stay with us for sport up next, but from the news team, it's good night.